Welcome everyone to climbing tutorial, and I'm so excited to do it because I've been sitting a lot and I finally figured out how to do it so you could climb, and also you could climb on the surfaces. So like if you went halfway on some kind of surface, you would snap to its surface on top. Everything I ask you in return is just like, subscription, and comment under this video because I'm putting a lot of the efforts in every video you see here. I'm trying to explain in the best way possible. I'm iterating on my errors from previous tutorials and I'm trying to fix it. So I don't see any reason you should not hit the subscription button right now. Okay, so with no further ado, let's go ahead and jump into tutorials. So I'm going to create an empty virtual reality template project and let's call it climbing tutorial like this and just hit create. Okay, once we've loaded in, the first thing I want to talk with you guys is how do we do custom animations. So for the past last week, I've been trying to find the best way to show you the animations and how to do custom. And what I've recently discovered is that we have here our animation blueprint, right? And we can right click here and show in folder view. So what we can actually do is to create an interface for our animations, because if you right click and you'll see here we have something called animation layer interface. So animation interface is something that allows us to do custom functionality of our animations. If you have a lot of different animations in your game and you want to have different approach to each of them, the animation layer interface will be the best choice. So let's go ahead and create it. And let's call it VR hand, like this, and go ahead and open it. So once you're here, we'll see our animation layers. So let's just call it idle. So the purpose of this interface is actually to communicate with other animation blueprints in our game and allow them to have custom animations. So therefore, we need to go to our inputs and create input like this. And in here, we can just open the input pose, inputs, and here we'll see different inputs. So if we open our ABP Mannequin XR, that's our default animation blueprint that is provided in our VR template, we'll see that we have some variables here. So for our animation, our hand, there are 4 variables responsible, those 4. So to replicate all of our possible movements in our game, we're going ahead and we'll create those 4 variables in our interface right here. So let's go ahead and create inputs. We're going to click this icon right here. And our first input will be our grasp, so the amount we have grasped. And if you're not familiar with how our VR template works, I really suggest you to watch this video on your top right corner. I explain every bit of how our VR template works, and that will be of help. So now, let's go ahead and our grasp input will be of type float. Then we'll have our another input. It's going to be for our alpha point. Then we'll have thumb up. And lastly, we'll have our index curl, like this. Then we're going to hit compile and save. So now we can just go ahead and close this. And let's come back first for our animation blueprint Mannequin XR. That's our default one. So now we are going to establish our communication with our interface. So if you click on your class settings right here, you will see the implemented interfaces here. And once you click on add button and search for our VR hands, you will see this interface here. So let's go ahead and edit. And as you may noticed, that our animation layer has appeared here, and that's our interface. So once we double click on it, we'll see that we have some kind of variables right here, input pose and output pose. And the same happens in our anim graph. So what we can do now is actually to go to our anim graph, and we're going to drag our idle animation layer to here. And if you click on this VR hand idle, you will see you have exposable properties right here. We can go ahead and create direct binding between those variables. So we're going to bind those 4 variables to those 4 variables right here. So let's go ahead. For our grasp, we're going to look for our pose alpha grasp, this one. For our alpha point, we're going to have current pose alpha point. For our thumbs up, we're going to have our pose alpha thumb up, this one. And for our index curl, we'll have pose alpha index curl. Like this. We're going to hit compile and save. So once we're here, we can go ahead and connect the output of this VR hand idle node to mirror, since we are going to mirror the animations. And everything we have right here, we can select, Control X to cut it from here, double click on our layer, and insert it right here. Those variables right here, they already represent what we have right here. So what would be the use of using those nodes? We're going to do it one by one. So let's go ahead and delete pose alpha grasp and connect this grasp right here. Let's delete our current pose alpha point and connect alpha point to here. Then current pose alpha thumb up, connect to thumb up. And index curl, we connect to our index curl. And the result of this layered blend per bone, we connect to result here. You can hit compile and save. But now we need to make sure that this node is connected too. Since we have our idle animation right here, it will make sense just to delete it and connect this input pose to here. It's already idle. So let's hit compile and save. Now let's go back to our VR template and let's actually test if we haven't ruined anything. That's the essential part. So as you can see, my fingers still preserve their functionality and everything works wonderful. So let's go ahead with our tutorial. Okay, so now I'll explain you how our grabbing will work. Our grab component, which we'll slightly modify later on, we'll use custom animation blueprints for our hands. Our grab component will have the animation layer. And this animation layer will be our animation blueprint, which will have an interface. So basically, interface will tell the animation blueprint how we should hold an item. So now, let's go ahead and create another animation blueprint. So let's go ahead and create another animation blueprint that will be specifically for our hand. So right-click on an empty space, animation blueprint. And we're going to choose it for our SK Mannequin XR. And hit create. And let's call it ABP Climbable Stone. Like this. So all we see here is our output pose. The same way we're going to add our interface because we want a custom animation, right? So let's go ahead to our class settings, implemented interfaces, and add our VR hands. And hit compile. Double click on our idle here, and we'll see our grasp, alpha point, thumb up, index scroll. Those are the inputs of our hand. So let's go quickly ahead, double click on any of those animations you see on your bottom right corner. I'll click on this one, and let's go to skeleton. So now we'll have to create an animation that will represent us holding a stone, like we're grabbing it, right? Like climbing. So I'll just go quickly through the animation, but just for everyone who's watching this, doesn't know how to do animations, you basically select the bones right here and you manipulate them so it looks like you're holding a stone. So I'll just start doing it. So this is the animation I've came up with, so maybe you can try to do the same, but I'll just go with this one since it's just for the sake of tutorial. So we can go ahead, click on create asset, create animation, current pose. Let's save it to our animations and let's call it SK Mannequin XR Climb and hit OK. Now we have saved our animation. So going back to our ABP Climbable Stone animation blueprint, we have to get this animation we've just created to our input pose. So let's blend our input pose, that's whatever pose we have right now in our game, and we're going to blend it between our climb animation, the one we have created right now. And our alpha will be our grasp, so the amount we push our button. And afterwards we connect our blend to output pose. Hit compile and save. So now we actually need some object we can climb. So I can go ahead to Quixel Bridge. So if you didn't know, you have a special marketplace where you can find free assets. So you can click on Window, Quixel Bridge. And here, that's basically where you can download the assets. So I'll go ahead to 3D assets and I'll look for a stone. So I could climb. And let's go ahead and I will choose this one. We can go ahead, click on download, wait until it downloads. And afterwards you can press add button, which will add this asset to your game. And the asset is here. Okay, now we have to add our grab component. So let's go ahead and look for our grab component. So what we're going to do, we're going to attach the hand of the motion controller to the stone, but we're not going to attach motion controller itself. We're just going to attach a mesh, so it looked like we're grabbing a stone. So let's go ahead and get our is held like this, and we're going to check if we're already holding our stone. So in case we do, we're going to try release. So let's go ahead and get our try release function here, like this, and let's move all of that code to the right. And if we released, we're going to grab it with another hand. So again, if we're already holding something, we're going to release it and grab it with our other hand. But in case we're not holding our stone with any of our hands, we're just going to go ahead and connect the false pin, creating reroute nodes here, to grab right away, like this. And in case our try release didn't succeed, we're going to return, just not as held, like this. So now we need to work on our hand, the way it's going to snap to our object. So let's go ahead and create a function. We'll call it try find hand mesh on controller. Try find hand mesh on controller. So this function will have an input. It will be our motion controller. That will be the controller we'll be trying to find hand in, and it will be of type motion controller component. Like this. Hit compile and save. So after we have found our motion controller, we need to access its mesh, right? So let's go ahead and get children components. So if you go to our VRPawn, I'll show you. As you can see, we have our motion controller left grab and right grip. And their children are hand left and hand right. That's what we are trying to get from our motion controller. So let's go ahead and create a loop. We're going to iterate through every children of our motion controller and try to find hand mesh. So for each loop. In this loop, we're going to see if our array element is our skeletal mesh. Cast to skeletal mesh component, like this. And in case it is, it means that that's our mesh. So let's go ahead and return it. Like this. And let's call our output as hand mesh. So here, in case this is true, we're getting our hand mesh. But in case we have gone through our loop and we didn't find anything, let's just return null. So we'll return empty hand mesh, like this. Hit compile and save. So now we need to actually create a function that will apply our animation blueprint animation to our hand and attach it to the socket that will be on our stones mesh. So let's go ahead and create another function. We can call capture hand mesh, like this. And let's go ahead and create a variable in our grab component. It's going to be of type boolean, and we're going to call it snap hand. So we'll control in our grab component, should we snap our hand to the object or no. In case we do, we need to provide a socket we want to attach our hand mesh to. So let's go ahead and also create a variable for our socket. It's going to be of a type name, and we're going to have socket name. So here we're going to get our motion controller reference, like this, and we're going to try find hand mesh on controller. And as input, we'll have our motion controller reference, like here. So now, after we get our hand mesh from our motion controller, we need to check if it is valid. That's an essential check because we might not get a mesh. And if it's valid, let's actually go ahead and promote it to a variable, like this. It's going to be our hand mesh. Just for the purpose of beauty, we can make reroute nodes, and afterwards we need to create a sequence. So we'll do two things here. So first of all, we'll apply custom animation if we have it, and then we'll snap our hand to the socket. So we need to create a variable. Let's call it hand anim layer. So that's going to be our animation blueprint. Basically, it was our interface inside that controls the custom animation. And here, it's going to be of type anim instance, but pay attention. It's going to be anim instance, and we're going to choose class reference. So we can drag it right here, and we need to check if we have provided it in our grab component. So let's go ahead and check is valid class and create a branch like this. Also, a little tip, you can create a branch by dragging from here and pressing B on your keyboard. That will save you some time. And afterwards, we need to tell our hand mesh to apply the animation from this hand animation layer. So let's go ahead, drag our hand mesh, link anim class layers, like this. And our class here will be our hand anim layer, like this. Perfect, now we have applied the animation for our hand. Afterwards, we need to snap it. But before snapping, we need to check if our snap hand is true. That's the variable we'll set up in our grab component in the object. Let's connect it right here. But before attaching hand, we need to store its local transform, because if we want to attach hand, we need also to think about detaching hand. So we need to store the location where our hand was before attaching. So let's go ahead, get our hand mesh, get relative transform, like this, and we're going to promote it to a variable. Now let's call it cached hand local transform, like this. And we're going to connect it to true pin. And now all we have to do is attach hand. So hand mesh, drag here, attach component to component, and our parent will be our get attach parent. Attach this pin to here because we're attaching it to our parent. And afterwards, we need to do something with socket. You remember, we have created a socket name here. That will be the socket we'll attach our hand to. So here's what I found out. That we can have a socket name, let's call it hand. That will be for our left hand. And for our right hand, we'll have to call it the same name, but add inverse also. So it was like an inverse hand for our right hand. So if you didn't get it, it's okay. You'll just see it in the code. So what we'll have to do now, we'll have to use a special node called format text. It's right here. And what we'll have to do here, so basically this node is responsible for formatting our text. We can do the following code. Curly braces 0, curly braces, underscore inverse. So if you hover on format text, you can see that you can use curly braces to denote format arguments. And if you use 0, it means that it will take the socket name and put it here instead of 0. And what we're going to do, we're going to get held by hand. And let's check if it equals, for instance, to right. And we're going to drag from socket name, select. So let's go ahead and connect this Boolean result to here. So in case we have our right hand, we will use our socket name underscore inverse. So let's go ahead and convert it to string, and connect the output from this node to here. So let's go ahead and connect the socket name from here to our socket name. And make sure that here, your scale rule will be keep world, and everything else will be snapped to target. That's the essential part, make sure you have it. Click compile and save. Now we come back to our try grab, and let's put our function right after call on grab. Since we have grabbed the item successfully, we need to capture our hand mesh. So this function will not happen all the time. This function will only work when we have our snap hand enabled. So that's what we are going to do in our stone blueprint. So once we capture our hand, we need to be able to release our hand. So let's go ahead and create another function, and we're going to create it release hand mesh. Like this. So once we have applied our animation to our hand, we need to remove the animation from our hand once we release. We're going to create a sequence. We're going to get our hand anim layer. We're going to check if it's still valid. Maybe in some cases it's not going to be valid. And we're going to make branch, get our mesh, get our hand anim layer, and we're going to now unlink anim layer class. And hand anim layer connect here. And it's going to happen on true. And afterwards, we also need to check if we are snapping our hand. So branch here. And now, once we detaching our hand from our stone, whatever object you're using in your game, we need to attach the hand mesh back to our controller. So let's go ahead and drag our hand mesh, attach component to component. It will automatically detach it from the stone. And our parent now will be our motion controller reference right here. And make sure your location rule is keep world, like this. As we remember, we have cached our hand local transform. So let's go ahead and get this variable right here. And now we're going to drag from our hand mesh, set relative transform, this one. And our new transform will be our cached hand local transform. Hit compile and save. So now we're just attaching our hand mesh back to our motion controller using this position that was before grabbing. That's logical. And now we need to release our hand mesh in our try release function. And we are going to do it before call on dropped, right here. That's everything for our grab component. So let's go back to our VR template, and we're going now to make our climbable stone. I will create it in my content folder. You can have any folder you want, but just for the sake of tutorial, I can create whenever I want. So I'll right click, blueprint class, actor, and I'll call it BP, climbable stone. So as you remember, we've downloaded the assets from our Quicksell bridge. So let's go ahead and get it. We can drag it from here to our climbable stone and add it here. So here's our stone. So since we want to grab it, we'll use our grab component right here. Since we have our grab component, you can see that we have our hand anim layer, new variable, we have our snap hand and socket name, and grab type. So for the grab type, you'll have to choose custom because we are not taking the stone, we're not attaching the stone to our hand, we need to attach hand to our stone. So we will use custom logic. Afterwards, we need to make sure that snap hand is set to true, because we are snapping now our hand. And also, you need to choose your hand anim layer. That's going to be our ABP climbable stone. And now we have to choose our socket name, but we don't have any sockets. Therefore, we're going to click on our static mesh, double click on our mesh here, and we're going to create sockets. We can go ahead to our socket manager, add socket, and let's call it hand. This will be our left hand, and let's position it. So just not to waste your own time and make it as quick as possible, you can go ahead and create the values I have right here. Like this. So this socket basically represents our left hand position on the stone. And afterwards, we need to create another socket. But remember, we have a specific naming rule. So we'll have hand underscore inverse, because that's how we set it up in grab component. And also go ahead and copy the location and rotation I have right here. It's just to save your time. And also the really essential part here is to add a collision to our stone, because our VRPawn will not be able to grab the stone later. So let's go ahead and click on our collision, and here add box simplified collision, like this. So that was the collision of our stone. Now we can go back to our stone, and since we've created our socket, we can go ahead and put the socket name right here. And it's called hand. Like this. And make sure that your stone mesh collision preset is set to custom and object type is physics body. Because our grab component reacts only to physics bodies. It will not grab any other kind of object type. So make sure you have physics body here. Hit compile and save. Now it's time to test it. So let's get our blueprint. Into our level, and let's actually see if it works and we have done everything correctly. If I go back to our stones and I try to grab it with my right hand, and as you can see, our hand mesh is in our stone. And if I already holding the stone with my right hand, I'll try to grab with my left hand. Right hand detaches. And we have our custom animation layer applied. So okay, so now we have the funniest part is actually climbing. And also let's go ahead and do some adjustment for our stone. The same way, you're going to your mesh and we're going to change some collisions. Make sure that you ignore the pawn. When we will be grabbing our stones, we don't want the pawn to overlap with them. So hit compile, go back. Now we're going to our VRPawn. And so what we're going to do, I know you guys usually have some locomotion in your game setup. You can watch any tutorials of other people doing it. And what they usually do is that they have a collision capsule and movement component. We're going to do the same so you can adjust your gameplay to whatever you want. So let's go ahead to our class settings, parent class, and let's choose character. So what we'll have to do is actually, let's go to our event graph and we're going to create another function. It's going to be event tick here. So this will be triggered every frame. So that's where we check, should we disable physics or no. So let's create a sequence. We'll have two functions here. So now we need to calculate the velocities we're operating our controllers with. So let's go ahead and create a function. We're going to call it calculate motion controller velocities, like this. And just for the purpose of this function, I will go ahead and create some variables. So let's go ahead, create a variable. Let's call it last frame motion controller left position. It's going to be of type vector. And the same we're doing for right. Last frame motion controller right position. Afterwards, create one more variable. We're going to call it motion controller right velocity, and the same motion controller left velocity. Like this. And now inside the function, we create a sequence. First, we'll do our motion controller left grip. So for our left hand, so let's grab our motion controller left grip like this. We're going to get world location, and we're going to subtract motion controller left position. And we're going to assign it to motion controller left velocity, like this. And after we've found our velocity, we need also to set our last frame motion controller left position to the value we have right here. And the same way we're doing for our right hand. So let's go ahead and get our motion controller right grip from here. We're getting its world location. We're getting its last frame position, subtracting it from location, getting its velocity, and assigning it to the subtract result, and connect the sequence node to here. And afterwards, we need to update its position. So let's go ahead and update it right here, like this. And let's create some reroute nodes to make it look more beautiful. Just make sure you have everything as I do, because it will play a big role in the future. Okay, we can hit compile and save. We're done with this function. Let's go back to our event graph and put this function here. So calculate motion controller velocities to here. And afterwards, we need to create another function, and let's call it update climbing. That's where our calculations of climbing will be based. And here we'll need to have a little bit of code. So we need to let our VRPawn know that it is holding a climbable object. And the only way to do this is actually to create a tag for our climbable object. And for your future climbable objects, don't forget to do this. That's important. So let's go back to our blueprint climbable stone, click on our grab component, and search for tag. And make sure that here you will add tag, and let's call it climb, like this. Hit compile and save. Again, for every climbable object in future, please add this tag to the grab component of your climbable object. That's important. Let's go back to our VRPawn, and here we'll do a sequence like this. So we're going to get our health component left. We're going to check if it's valid. And in case it's valid, we're going to see if this component, it means our grab component, has tag. And our tag, as we've created recently, will be climb. And we're creating a branch here. So in case it has its tag, it means that the VRPawn is in climbing mode because it has grabbed the climbing object. So let's create a local variable, and it will be of a type boolean, and let's call it isClimbing. And we are going to set it here to true if it's touching a climbable object, and we're going to set it false if it's not. So afterwards, we need to create another local variable. So let's go ahead and create the variable. It will be of a type vector, and we'll call it accumulated climb velocity. And here we're going to set it on true, and the input to here will be our accumulated climb velocity plus our motion controller left velocity, like this. Actually, I forgot to do one thing. It's actually to null out our local variables before our sequence. So let's go and do it. So we'll set our isClimbing to false and accumulated climb velocity to 0, like this. Because when we are not climbing, we don't need any accumulated climb velocity. Okay, so that's good for our left hand. Let's go ahead and duplicate it for our right hand. We're going to get health component right. Like this, connect it here and here. And instead of our motion controller left velocity, we're going to use our right velocity. Like this. Those variables stay the same. So then we need to create another 2 pins to our sequence. We're going to do more events. Let's move it more to the right. We're going to get our capsule component and add world offset and connect it to the then to node like this. So we're adding our world offset based on our accumulated velocity. So let's go ahead here, get our accumulated climb velocity. We're going to multiply it by -1 because once we're moving our hand to the top and we're climbing the rock, we need to move our body to the bottom. And the same way, if we're moving our hand towards us, we need to go to the opposite direction. So we're going to multiply it by -1 like this and connect it to delta location. Afterwards, and that's the essential part, everything will not work if you don't do this. We need to get our last frame motion controller left position and accumulated climb vector. We're going to subtract them and assign them to last frame motion controller left position to this variable. And the same way we have to do with our right position. So let's copy those 2 nodes, get them here. Instead of our left position, we're using our right position. Like this. And we're going to assign it to last frame motion controller right position. Like here. Okay, make sure you have the same. If you don't, that's going to be an error. And afterwards, we need to disable the gravity when we're climbing and enable when we are not climbing. So let's go ahead, get our isClimbing variable here and create a branch. And we're going to connect it to our then 3. Like this. So in case we're climbing, we need to get our capsule component and set enable gravity to false, like this. And when we are climbing, we need to also set collision enabled to no collision, because when we're climbing, we don't want to collide with anything. That's how it's gonna work, because if you collide, it will cause the stuttering of capsule component and therefore your camera, so I don't want to do this. Let's connect it here. And vice versa, when we are not climbing, we need to enable the gravity, and we need to set collision enabled to collision enabled. Like this. Okay, let's hit compile and save. Let's go back to our graph and add this function, update climbing, to our then 1, right here. Now we have to work a little bit on our capsule component. So as you can see now, your VR origin is snaps to 0. But when we are spawned, our camera will be too high. So we need to get to our VR origin and put it -90 Z location, like this. And let's click on our capsule component and let's decrease its capsule radius to really little, like this. And afterwards, let's move our VR origin to the front. That's how we're going to be able to climb and not having any problems with our collision. So let's hit compile and save. In our capsule component, let's play with collision. So what I prefer doing is actually go to collision preset, change it for custom, and ignore camera, visibility, and 3D vision. Hit compile and save. So now, if I go ahead and try to climb, that I'm now able to climb the stones. And moreover, I can grab the stones with 2 hands and I will have accumulated movement with my both hands. So that's the beauty of this. And also I can grab this stone like this and climb on top. There is no gravity when I'm climbing, but once I release, I snap back to the floor. I will go ahead and copy the floor, Control C, Control V. Move it a little upwards, maybe scale it down because it's too big, like this. And afterwards, I'll make one more copy and I'll put it like this, so that we could have a little level here. And let's make our climbing. So okay, that's what I've came up with. I can grab the stones, I can go up. If I release it, I will drop. So that's how it works. And let's actually climb on the top. I will show you how it works and try to get on top. So as you can see, I am now on top. Let's do it again. So I can go ahead and climb. I can grab everything with my 2 hands. I'll have accumulated movement the same way right here. And if I push myself on the top, I will be spawned on the top. Okay guys, I hope I helped you with your climbing and now everything works perfectly. You can climb in your game, you can make some cool interactions, and I wish you a good day and I'll see you in the next tutorial.